So anyway, thank you all very much for today. And we're going to now switch programming and move to the real most amazing part of the day, and that's honoring and a tribute for Stelios Papadopoulos. And so I'll just say a few words, and then I'll hand it over to you, Karun, to really lead the full tribute. So I'd like to frame you, Stelios, in two ways. I've known you for about 15 years, mostly through this organization, and I really just been so privileged to get to know you. You're really just an extraordinary individual. I'd like to talk about three interesting juxtapositions that you possess and three characteristics that you possess. The three interesting juxtapositions: you are uniquely skilled at both raising capital and mentoring young scientists. You are both a physicist and a dreamer. And you are equally comfortable in both the biotech boardroom and a Greek coffee shop. Three characteristics. Stelios, you are a nerd. You really are. I don't remember what you told me. You have 10 Ks that are filed in your basement for every company that went public from 1980 whatever to 2000 and whatever, and you study them. I think many of us are nerds. I don't think any of us would do that. The second is, Stelios, you are impressionable. I see Sam Waxel every couple of months, and all I hear about every time I see him is how ROCK2 inhibition can cure the next disease. Most recently, when I saw Sam and he told me that ROCK2 could cure whatever disease it was going to cure, Stelios was standing next to him, and Stelios said, "It's true." And then the last one is very serious, is Stelios, you're a good guy. And I have two data points that speak to that. One is the work that you've done with Foundation Santé, which I mentioned earlier, which is a not-for-profit organization that really reaches out to help students. And then the second reason I know that you're a good guy is that you're a part of this organization, USAIC. And for those of you who have been part of this for many years, will understand what I'm saying. For those of you who are new to this organization, there's a certain esprit de corps, and you have to be a certain kind of person to really persist in this. You have to be driven, and you have to really be a winner, but you also have to have that gene of goodness, and that's something that you have in spades, Stelios, so thank you. Karun, I will hand it over to you.
Thank you. So let's give a big hand of applause to Andy. I think he has applauded everybody. So before we start with Stelios, so Andy, thank you so much. Good to have you back from your sabbatical. And after this, we start preparing for 2026. So here we are, Stelios. So proud, so honored to have you. So I'm not going to talk much, but let 5 of our chosen few people we selected, let's speak for yourself. First, I call upon you, Maria, if you can come and give your remarks.
Well, all of you know about Stelios, but there is one thing that he's new at. He's a new grandfather. So what I've done is I've written a letter to your granddaughter. So Boston, the 6th of May, 2025. My dear Penelope, you are too little to read this letter, but I hope that you will do so in a few years. I write it because today is special. We're here to celebrate your wonderful grandfather, Stelios. By the time you read this, you will know that your grandfather came from Greece to study when he was 18, with $200 in his pocket, amazing soccer skills, and an absolute determination to succeed. There are many, many articles and interviews and videos that will give you the details of his legendary career in biotechnology, an industry he helped create. I will not go into that, but I strongly encourage you to research the many companies he helped build and learn of the life-saving medicines that have been created because of his work. In fact, your grandfather is known as the godfather of biotech, a title he claims he does not like, but I am not so sure about that. Now, even with this remarkable career, what people appreciate most is the man himself. Everyone who knows your grandfather has an anecdote, which they will usually tell with a twinkle in their eye and a very broad smile. Always ready with the story himself, in his characteristic accent and low voice, he will speak with relish of his beloved Greece. He will tell you he learned Spanish by watching telenovelas with the ladies who help around the house, and he delights in sharing how he checkmated ChatGPT. Yes, he really did that. But most importantly, your grandfather is a generous and caring man who loves his family, cherishes his friends, and helps anyone who needs a hand. He will spend hours with a young man who is lost and needs advice and sits with a sick friend in the hospital. He has a knack for approaching every person, regardless of their background and social status, with warmth and honesty. He is funny, shrewd, and curious. Although he is an excellent organizer, he is a terrible meeting timekeeper, and he likes to win, especially in the soccer field. Now, Easters are special in the Papadopoulos' house. Your grandfather will cook for days and invite lots of people to celebrate, but not this year, however. You see, he knew you would be born around Easter and wanted to spend all this time with you. Full of pride, hours after you arrived, he sent everyone a lovely video of you. Your grandfather's life is not only the story of a young immigrant who took a chance and won, it is also the story of an extraordinary man with insatiable curiosity and unstoppable drive. So my wish for you, Penelope, is that you inherit your grandmother's Essie's beauty and smarts, and your grandfather Stelios' wisdom and can-do attitude, so that, like them, you will help make the world a better place. Fondly, Maria. That was great. That was great.
It was indeed very, very sweet, Maria. Francesco, please.
Can't beat that, Francisco.
No, don't worry. I don't think I've ever worked so hard in my life as I worked in this meeting. He's really tough on each and all of us, really tough. Look, he's always working, detail-oriented. So, just 3 minutes. Karun.
Contribution.
Thank you for the invitation, for the honor to be able to say something about Stelios. The first thing that I had to start thinking when I received this invitation was, what tone should I use when I say a few things about Stelios? Should it be a formal, celebratory, solemn kind of tone, or should it be more informal, irreverent, and Goliardic? I've looked at the list of attendees. I've looked at the format. This is the first time that I've joined this meeting. By the way, congratulations for the incredible group of people that you are able to put together every year. Really, really very high-level conversations. And the last panel was really a peak. So congratulations, Karun. Looking at the content and the list of attendees and the format, I said, okay, so maybe I decided I should be formal and I should be very high-level formal. So I decided to do that. No, I didn't. No, I didn't. I couldn't. I really needed to be a little bit more relaxed on Stelios. So let me start, and I'll take just 3 minutes. I'll just take 3 minutes. In the mid-90s, which is many years ago, in the mid-90s, our common friend, a lot of people here in the room know him, JF, Jean-François Formela, rings me at MIT. I was a young postdoc, and says, you have to meet Stelios. I say, who the hell is Stelios? Oh, you don't say that. Stelios is a legend. He's a living legend.
is a godfather of biotech. He's really someone that is enabling our industry. So I was very excited to get that phone call because Jean-Francois, of course, knew that, even though it was during my postdoc, I was thinking about the business side, to enter the business side in the industry. So I meet Stelios at MIT for coffee. And I'm very excited and I'm very tense. I'm in my mid-20s. And I'm very tense and I'm very excited. And Stelios sits me down at the coffee and says, let me start with one thing. Pick a word. Any word. What? Pick any word. What do you mean? Pick a word, any word. I will demonstrate to you that it comes from Greek. What? Yes, everything comes from Greece. Everything is Greek. That sentence, of course, a few years later was taken up by Hollywood and has become a cult a cult sentence in a movie, right? I'm sure you all know the movie that we're talking about. But so that was the first feature that really struck me. He's really Greek. It's a good thing, of course, Stelios. It's really Greek. This Greekness is really very pervasive of his soul. I remind you that Greeks, we have heard something earlier, actually it was from Andy. Greeks invented philosophy as many other things, but they also invented philosophy. And philosophy is what? Is really thinking, is really having, trying to extrapolate lessons, observations, thoughts, and making them into big categories. And that is really Stelios. Stelios has spent his life collecting data, we heard, collecting data, analyzing situations, data points, and making them up to the level of ideas, of concepts, of wisdom. And that is the wisdom that he really likes to share, especially with the new generation, because when I was a young MIT postdoc, I was representing very little interest for Stelios in the first level. And he was very, very generous of his time. I remember him driving down to MIT. He was very, very generous. So that is the wisdom that every time that you meet with Stelios, especially at the start of your career, as earlier in your career, you really get out of those meetings equipped with more data that really make you feel more powerful and more empowered, for what it can be. So that is the first point. He's really a philosopher. Stelios is a philosopher. Before being a banker, before being a scientist, he's really a philosopher. He's really a thinker. The second point I would like to underscore of Stelios is really he's a scientist. He's a really deep scientist. Of course, we heard his CV, we heard his career. I remember again, many, many years ago, he started with his best friends, Charlie and Spiro. He started a high science company was called Cellzome in Germany. And I was lucky enough with JF, we basically backed Stelios and his friends. And it was very, very impressive to see how a businessman, a financial man, as Stelios was to me. I looked at him as a banker, as a business guy. It was very impressive, the kind of depth and wisdom that he had in the details of science. And actually that high science that even today, 20 years later, I think it's more than 20 years later, is still, GSK is still betting on it and is making the most out of this. So really, really impressive. And then the last point I would like to make about Stelios, who is a philosopher, who is a scientist. He's a very generous and great human being, very, very generous person. You can feel, I'm sure some of you are lucky enough to have been coming to the meeting that he organizes with Fondation Santé in Greece every year. And that doesn't feel like a meeting. It doesn't feel like a meeting. It feels like a reunion of people that are gathering around Stelios and others that co-organize the meeting, but it's Stelios' meeting, who really reflects and energizes the love that he has for his career, for his job. And of course, is the light that comes from a man that absolutely, deservedly feels that he's accomplished. He's accomplished because, as we were hearing, he came as an immigrant. He has delivered everything that he could probably dream of 40 years ago. And so now he can really enjoy everything that he has accomplished. And that really shines and gets translated into the generosity that he offers around himself. So thank you very much, Stelios, for your 27 years of proximity. It's been an honor. It is an honor. And I really hope we'll be doing some more companies together or just enjoying ouzo in Greece. Thank you.
I thought a lot about what I was going to say. It's difficult for me because I've known this man forever, and he's a friend. And when you speak about a friend, it isn't easy. So I met Stelios. He doesn't even remember. It was I was 12. It was 1985. 1985. It's a long time ago. And when I met him, he had completed his PhD. He was just leaving DLJ as an analyst and coming to Drexel with a couple of people that were coming there to build a biotech franchise, and soon left to go to Payne Weber. But when I met him, what was unique about Stelios were the questions he asked. What's really cool about Stelios, and Francesco just said it, is his unbelievable curiosity, which is what all smart people have. And Stelios had that, but more. You could speak to Stelios about sports. You could speak to Stelios about Greece. By the way, that's everything, right? So we know. And he came from Thessaloniki, so it made him unique because what was cool about Thessaloniki? The Jews. So Stelios knew everything about all the Thessaloniki Jews, what they had done, what they didn't do, what was said that they did. So it was interesting. It's also cool that Stelios and I both have our first granddaughter named Penelope, which was great fun for me when he immediately let me know that he had a granddaughter named Penelope. But again, what's important about Stelios is what he has done as an immigrant. I'm an immigrant, but he's an older immigrant. I mean, the difference, I meant he came as an older individual. I came to America when I was 5 years old. But what's interesting about Stelios, emanating from his curiosity, is his ability to be a friend. It is unbelievable. So someone who knows science, someone who knows philosophy, someone who understands sports, someone who understands love, someone who understands a unique plethora of important things in life is also an unbelievable friend. And one of the great things in my life that happened was that Stelios is finally on the board of a company that I'm building. Stelios is one of those important people that understands the world. And I'm going to tell you something very interesting. It's one of the few mistakes he ever made in life. I always talk about it. He doesn't believe it happened. He ignores it. In 1987, when Stelios was moving me to go public, Friday, I think it was October 17th, I called him panic-stricken because the markets had dropped about 100 points. And I called him and said, Stelios, what's going to happen? We were filing for our IPO at ImClone. And Stelios said, don't worry, it'll all come back on Monday. So Monday was Black Monday, and the markets crashed. People were jumping off of buildings. I called Stelios, and he said, yeah, I fucked up. It's probably the only time Stelios ever made any mistakes, because his understanding of how to start a company, how to build companies, how to analyze companies, how to sell companies was unique. And that's something that emanates from his unique personality. But most importantly, the reason I'm up here, or at least I think I'm up here, is because Stelios is a true friend and an amazing human being and the godfather of the biotech industry, which is not a small thing. So Stelios, there's a reason that everybody honors you. And the reason is because you're Stelios. So thank you for being Stelios.
Next is Paris, before he comes up. We have two types of friends, I always say. One is seasonal and one is all season. So he himself reached out a couple of weeks back through Andy. He came to know about this meeting and he knew that we are going to be honoring Stelios. And we spoke, and we are talking of immigrants. Like Sam is a much older immigrant compared to all of us in the room. And I think if I remember correctly, you mentioned you came here like 11, 12 years back as part of the Merck KGA EMD Serrano, and how much Stelios helped you. And he wanted to be here to say something. So please come. I think you're one of the guys, like I really respect, who reached out and wanted to say something. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Karun. Shukriya for letting me say a few words about Stelios. Very appreciative and very honored to do it. Stelios obviously has left and will continue to leave an indelible mark on the community as a whole. But the reason I'm here is that also the Greek biopharma community, and and I have something to say about that. And others in the Greek biopharma community have some comments to also add, and you'll see when I get there, Stelios. So when I first met Stelios, which Karun you mentioned, I was going down a JP Morgan elevator, and I had my badge on, and Stelios looks at the badge and says, "We got to get out now," and in Greek. I didn't know who he was. I just arrived from Japan, this is 12 years ago, and I said, okay. And so we get off. I didn't think twice, actually, that he was a man that I just met, and we were going onto bedroom floor, and so he says to me, you got to come to my conference. I still didn't know who he was. And until he told me, and obviously then after with time I realized, what a compassionate man he is, what a generous man he is, what a passion he has for science, for biotech, Greece, as everyone has said, and so I ended up going to this conference. He reached out on his own, no EAs. I was trying to make it happen. He sent me the form. He chased for me to do that form. For many of you who know Stelios, you know how affable he is and how practical he is. And so I went there, and then I realized all these great things that people are saying about him today. So hugely appreciative of Stelios, everything you have done for me. But before coming here today, and this is only 48 hours ago, and this is how much people love you. The Greek community loves you. I just sent an email out to a bunch of folks that Fula sent to me, and I said, have you got some words that I should say about Stelios? And so, there was an outpour of people saying lots of things about Stelios, and I'll start with George Yankopoulos, actually, because I think this is a wonderful, wonderful quote here. One thing I love about Stelios is his heart. Everybody knows him as the godfather of biotech, but I see him more like a Greek nono, which is what I call Stelios, who nurtures and protects and cares about so many people. More than 40 years ago, when Stelios was teaching at NYU Medical School, and I was doing my MD, PhD at Columbia, Stelios cold called me because a student of his was really struggling with mental health issues. Do you remember the story? Stelios somehow learned that I was good friends with this individual, got my phone number, and called me to see how and if we could help him together. Who else other than Stelios does something like that? Anna Protopappas, another good friend, says, Stelios introduced philoxenia to the biotech world with the wonderful conferences he organized for well over 25 years. According to Google, while philoxenia shares similarities with the concept of hospitality, it extends beyond it. It's about transforming a stranger into a friend, creating a sense of belonging and shared experience, exactly what Stelios did at the meetings. And some other comments on his compassion and generosity are Marina Hatzopoulos, who loves his honesty, openness, and humility. Art Pappas loves his amazing perspective on integrity and fairness. Yvonne Sepsis loves how he goes out of his way to help people. And she says that when we are lucky enough to receive his help, we put our best selves forward and are incredibly grateful and hope that he knows how appreciative we all are for what he has done and continues to do. Eleni Ritsu says his generosity, loves his generosity and how he consistently is willing to share his time and support in a way that uplifts those around him. Peter Anastasiou loves his embodiment of the Greek concept of philotimo, which is a sort of combination of kind of pride, dignity, and sort of duty. He's always done, he says, the right thing for the right reasons, for the biotech industry, which he helped create, for his companies and for the Greek community, and for his vast network of colleagues and friends. And then, folks mentioned his passion for science and for biotech and for Greece. So Sir Mene Pangalos loves his unwavering enthusiasm for scientific innovation and for Greece. John Maraganore loves his stories about the history of biotech. Kleanthis Xanthopoulos loves his intellectual generosity. Emil Kakis loves his ability to integrate history and science with the same enthusiasm like a true Renaissance man. Peter Handrinos loves his ability to weave the academic, the complex, and the esoteric into the practical. Anna Greca, who's here today, loves his commitment to biotech, his tremendous generosity in supporting the careers of younger colleagues and being a champion of their shared hometown of Thessaloniki. And Simos loves his encyclopedic knowledge of all things biotech, his incredible memory, and his big heart, but most of all, that he's a true mama's boy, like Simos.
He's a mama's boy, not I.
And then, others, I'm actually half reading these, by the way, and I will give you all of this to read yourself, because this is how much love you have.
Hurry up, Karun's going to throw you off.
Karun's happy. Karun's happy. We're almost there, Karun. These are important quotes here. And so, in terms of being a mentor and connector of people, opportunities, Bill Theophilou says that Stelios is wired to find the connection between whatever you're doing and how he can help. Spiros Rombotis talks about his compass of the capital markets and relentless manual tracking of financings that remain unmatched to the current day. Jerry Karambalas says that without Stelios' advice and mentoring of biotech leadership teams, there would be far fewer successful companies and CEOs today. Nikos Nikolaidis loves his passion for enlightening biopharma entrepreneurs and approaches to uniquely position their company's technology and products to compete in the complex pharma industry. And there is one last love, that Nikos Grigoriadis and Nikos Galatakos talk about, that someone touched on earlier, and I think that might have been Francesco. So Nikos Grigoriadis starts with, he loves your, your bright gaze, acumen, and youthful enthusiasm. Sounds like a love note, actually, to start with. but continues to say, your support for Aris Thessaloniki football team, and that you are an inspiring man. And Nick Galakatos also talks about your love for soccer, and he loves your passion for biotech, all things Greek, that Greeks and biotech are top of your list, especially the ones who can kick a soccer ball well. So, Karun, sorry, it took a bit longer. There's actually more, which I'm not going to share anymore. I'm getting the stop sign. But Stelios, on your special day, thank you for everything you've done for the Greek biopharma community, and of course more broadly. Keep your compassion, keep your generosity, keep your passion and love for biotech, for science, your connectivity with everyone, and for soccer. And most of all, and I think Sam mentioned it earlier, just be Stelios, be yourself. We love you. Thank you.
Chris, so don't say this time the hey, Karun, because last year, you were briefed on this.
All right. First, I have to say, I think I'm in another dimension here because this is the second nice speech I've heard from Sam in less than a week. You're going to develop a whole other reputation if you're not careful, my friend. Right. So my fellow grandfather, I know you really enjoy these types of moments, and you don't. You said you didn't. But that raises the question about, well, why do we do this? And, we are a community, and we're a community of really smart people. But we need people in that community who enable and who create our community. And that's, I think, why we come together, really down to you, Stelios. So everybody has talked about Stelios being a godfather. But this isn't about the movie. What is a godfather really doing? I didn't think it's about the movie, but, maybe there's a side to you I don't know. The godparent is someone who sponsors a person at baptism, is the number one thing. And I think you've obviously seen the baptism of a number of companies in our industry, but also the baptism of a number of careers in our industry. It's already been talked about that you are bilingual between Wall Street and the lab bench. And you've actually also co-founded Exelixis in 1998. So you didn't just help others, you've actually done this, and you created a leading oncology company and the launch of a blockbuster drug. Just this week, another Stelios company, Regulus, was sold to Novartis, which is pushing back the frontiers with microRNA therapeutics. Of course, as CEO of Biogen, I would be remiss to point out that you've been a member of the Biogen board for 15 years. And you guided Biogen through significant transformation. The company's revenue grew from $3 billion to $10 billion. I think there was a little bit more of a peak in between there, but we're still at $10 billion. And obviously, under your chairmanship, we became a pioneer in science and brought to market really breakthrough drugs in multiple sclerosis, first ever therapy in spinal muscular atrophy, first disease-modifying therapies for Alzheimer's and ALS. And in fact, today's culture of breakthrough medicines at Biogen, I think, really is your heritage. Now, we've also talked about the fact that Stelios is Greek. But I think I wouldn't just say Greek, because I think Stelios' heritage is really that of ancient Greece. And I come back to Stelios as a godfather, because another role of a godfather is spiritual guidance, mentorship, and a promise to raise a child in faith. So what do we talk about with faith and the child in the case of biotechnology? Well, it turns out that the ancient Greeks Greeks were, of course, the creators of the foundations of our modern research-based industry today. They took even more ancient concepts of reason and inquiry by looking at nature and trying to explain them in a more rigorous and non-mythical manner. And during this time, many key mathematical concepts were developed, which are still important today. And of course, Aristotle added the importance of nature and ethics. And that is what I think is really Stelios' greatest contribution, which is to inspire, mentor the next generation of leaders to be curious, to rigorously study science ethically in a manner which contributes to the better health and well-being of patients. Making sure the right people get up in our industry is absolutely critical to the future of it. One Martin Shkreli can do so much damage. And Stelios has been a role model for both current and future generations. And I go back to the conference that you hold every year in Greece. And like most conferences, this is a conference where we think about new ideas, new science. We're all thinking about doing deals. But one of the things that is a feature of that conference that I have found hugely rewarding is the time we spend doing a tour and the stories about ancient Greece. Because ancient Greece is where the foundation of goodness came in our business. And I think it's a spiritual return to our roots as an industry, and to remind ourselves, particularly in difficult times, that we have to dedicate ourselves to science and to rigor and to the benefit of patients. And let's face it, we're in businesses, and there are the pressures of profits, and we can sometimes forget that. And I think if we do, that's to the detriment of our industry. And so for me, as I say, ancient Greece is really the principles, the method, and if you like, the faith in our business. And you bring us back to our faith, and we are the children that you are mentoring and sponsoring. So we've talked about the uncertainty today. This too shall pass. I mean, if all this science started 2.5 millennia ago and it's still growing strong, I think we will get through this administration as well. But probably leadership is more important now than ever. A lot of our people are nervous. A lot of people are worried. Now's the time for strength of leadership to demonstrate that, yes, we can fight this. Yes, we can demonstrate the value of our medicines, of the strength of the talent we have in our people. And you are the inspiration of all of that. And I'll just finish with a quote from Socrates, which I think really embodies what you do. Socrates famously stated, "I cannot teach anybody anything. I can only make them think." We have this wonderful award that is easily going to fit in your hand baggage going back to New York. So Stelios, here is the Distinguished Service Award on behalf of the whole biopharmaceutical community. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you all. As you've noticed, I'm wearing a tie today. Only Prem Luckman is a tie, I noticed. I thought it was like my bar mitzvah today, just to reference to the Jewish influence. Lots of random thoughts. The credit for the scientific excellence at Biogen and the innovative drugs, there's the man right there, Doug Williams, former head of R&D. And as for Exelixis and the great breakthroughs, where's Mike Morrissey? CEO forever. There's the man. It's just a privilege to be around, and after a while, see, I've been around so long that people attribute things to me that I had nothing to do with, because there's no one else from that time to claim credit. So as I said, a few random thoughts. I want to start by referring to the comments that Daphne made in the morning, in the very beginning. And on the issue of women in biotech. Now, as you've heard from Andy, I'm something of a nerd. I proudly say that. I am a data geek. I just collect data on everything. I mean, I've got, blood pressure data on me for 20 years, cholesterol data for 30 years. I mean, you name it. I also have the most comprehensive data set of all IPOs in biotech forever. It's the only one in the world. And if you care, I'll explain to you later why that might be the case. So here's an interesting factoid. There have been roughly 1,200 IPOs over the 45 years of biotech public market activity, more than half in the last few years in this crazy market. During the 1980s, there were 125 IPOs. Now, each one of them roughly had 6 board members. So that's about 750 board seats. Guess how many women were sitting on biotech boards in the 80s at the time of IPO? I'll take any guess. No. 15. 7 of the 15 were the spouses of the CEO. And how many CEOs were women in 1980s? 1. There was an obscure little biotech company in the diagnostic space called Tago, T-A-G-O, and the founder was a woman, and she was CEO, only to be dethroned 2-3 years after the IPO in the middle of the night by the board. Obscure little factoid. So we've come a long way with more distance to go, for sure. Now, on the issue of Karun, who is looking at his phone, Karun is something special. Did you all have like a 3rd grade teacher whom you respected immensely and you loved, but you feared? That's Karun. He scares me to death. Twice a year we have these little dinners of the board. So 2-3 years ago, whatever, I had surgery and I'd post-op bleeding. Do you think I dare tell Karun I couldn't come? I came. And I would be running to the bathroom every couple of hours, less than a couple of hours, for bleeding needs. He gave me a dirty look anytime I walked out. But, seriously, he's extraordinary. This family he's created here is reflective of our industry, of our people, who we are, what we do. And it takes a special person like Karun. So Karun, to you, thank you. So just briefly, I'll tell you a little bit of my story, because I want to tie in my experiences to what's going on today in this country. So I was born in Greece. You've heard plenty about that. And oh, by the way, I do that thing about give me a word. I'm going to paraphrase it now. I never said that. However, I love words. I love languages. I love, for instance, words that are born in one language and get transformed with another meaning in another language. So Steve Knight used the term before sycophant in our panel. A sycophant is somebody who's a flatterer, somebody who tries to make you feel good, kiss your ass or whatever, just to be blunt. Well, that's not the meaning of the word in Greek. Now, Sam, I'm going to teach you something. You always teach. This one you don't know. I'm going to teach you that so you can know and use it in the future without attribution. So sycophant, if you look at the Greek etymology, is somebody who shows figs. Now, what is that? Now, we're talking about trade wars now and tariffs. Well, in ancient Athens, there was a trade restriction. You could not export figs because they're strategic good for the country, for the city-state. So anybody who showed figs or exported figs illegally was a bad person. And then later that word came to mean somebody who would be dragged to court to give a false statement to accuse somebody inappropriately. So in modern Greek today, a sycophant is somebody who spreads bad rumors about you or testifies against you. In America, it's a flatterer. How that happened, I don't know. But that's a better example than give me a word, any word, I'll tell you. Kimono, yeah. So I was born in Greece in the late 40s, and Greece, as you all know, went through World War II. It was tough. The tougher part was the civil war that ensued, because during the war, there was a great deal of resistance fighters who went to the mountains to fight the Germans, except that as the war was coming to an end, they decided to fight each other because some were aligned with the Communist Party, some were aligned with the right-wing political parties. So that civil war went on for years, and it was devastating. At the end, in the late 40s, when the war was over, two things happened. Several 100,000 Greeks of a country that was 6 or 7 million at the time escaped behind the Iron Curtain, as we used to call it then. You know, the communist Balkan states and Russia, Soviet Union, to be precise. The other thing was there was a systematic effort for the next 20, 30 years by the state to truly turn the country into ideologically a right-wing Christian country. Now, you may say, what does all that mean? What does it mean practically speaking? If you wanted a civil service job in the 50s or 60s, which was a cushy job, it was, you know, good salary, good benefits, permanence in a country of poor economy, you had to go and apply and submit what in Greek we translate as a certificate of social convictions. And the security department within the police department would issue that because they had a folder on you and they knew you. And if you were not a right-wing conservative Christian person, you didn't get it. And if you didn't get a job. So the country, the machine of the country, was controlled by this right-wing mentality. So most students like myself were somewhat liberal. And in the 60s, when I was a senior in high school, along with a couple of other guys, I co-led a citywide strike of students to protest government measures against the teachers. So two things happened after the strike. It was about a week-long strike. We marched, we protested. The principal called me into his office. He said, "You're such a fool." He says, "You're a smart kid, but you're stupid." He says, "You don't realize I'm characterized as a leftist, and now everybody assumes I instigated the strike, so I'm going to be in trouble now for the rest of my career. As a result, I'm throwing you out of school for a week." So he expelled me from school. Then, a few months later, I was called by the security department within the police, and they said, "Come over here, sit down." They opened this folder, and they started reading to me. "So in 1963, you went to the following political speech. In 1964, you did this and that." It says, "You're of good family. Your grandfather was an officer of the Greek army. He died in the war. Your uncle is an officer of the Greek army." As it turned out, my first cousin and my brother also became officers of the Greek army. So we're really a military family, except yours truly. He says, "Why you do that?" So I was scared, I was nervous, and they said, "Look, we'll give you a pass now, but watch out." By the way, they had a folder on every Greek citizen. That was just the reality. Those of you who have grown up in sort of like quasi-democratic states, I met my friend Levan from Turkey earlier today. He understands, he knows what it's like, can appreciate this. Now, why is this relevant? It's relevant because when the opportunity finally arose for me to leave Greece and come here, it wasn't just science. Believe it or not, I had seen a movie clip of Richard Feynman playing the bongo drums, and won the Nobel Prize in physics, and I was a physicist, and I wanted to come to the US to win a Nobel Prize in physics. I mean, talking about being naive. But it was really what has led most of us to this country. One, it is the land of opportunity, and two, it's the land of freedom of expression, freedom of choice. And I'm not alone. These people who spoke about me, Paris was born in Greece, Francesco in southern Italy, to be precise, Maria in Peru, Chris in Canada, Sam Waxel, Paris. He was like 1 year old, he convinced his parents, Holocaust survivors, to take him to Ohio. Now, why Ohio? I don't know. But humor me for a moment. How many of you were born abroad? Just raise your hand. Keep your hands up there. And those of you who have at least one parent born abroad, raise your hands. Wow. You can put your hands down. Francesco, we know you. Yeah. Why am I doing this? We are building, and I use the present continuous on purpose, we are building this country. We're making it happen. Anything from cutting the grass in the yards to advancing science and technology. Once this country becomes unattractive for us to come here, this is the end of this country. And what's going on right now, it's not about tariffs, it's not about trade wars, it's not about the recession and interest rates, it's about a protracted attempt to shift the ideological focus of this country in a different direction. This is all misdirection. You know, when a magician gets on stage, he gets you to look here, gets you to look there, and then a rabbit comes out of the middle. And all that stuff about, oh, we're going to make Canada the 51st state. Oh, we're going to open Alcatraz. Ridiculous ideas that will never happen. Oh, remember the threat, by the way, to Hamas? If the hostages are not out, there will be hell and, on earth, and you never seen it before. That was a couple of months ago. There's still 60 hostages there. Nobody talks about them. The news cycle keeps on removing. The objective is, this is the textbook of how to create a totalitarian state. You do two things. You insert into all positions of the state your acolytes, and all these people that got fired from government, you think these jobs will remain open? No, they will be filled. Let's call them MAGA-like affiliates. And the other is, people close to the system control the factors of production, oligarchs. The Soviet Union worked that way, many other states. We're heading there. So we need to understand this, and at minimum, be aware of what's going on. At maximum, we have to get ready for some action. This is not going to end well. Now, I have, like many of you, I don't want to say I'm an optimist. I think I'm really a pragmatist, but I have enormous faith. I think this country is unlike any other country. And the balance, the essence, the central pole of this country is incredibly strong. And it won't be, we all say, well, look, wait for the midterms. Congress will shift. Guess what? Did you ever think about this? There are three branches of government: the executive, the legislative, and the judicial. But guess what? Only the executive branch has enforcement powers. The courts don't have their own army and police force. Neither does Congress. So you could go on. The other day, somebody was sent inappropriately, and I'm not going to debate the details of the case, to Venezuela or to El Salvador. And the court says, you got to bring him back. And the answer was, oops, the plane left. Complete disregard. How do you think the courts are going to enforce decisions that the government simply chooses to ignore? So we need to be aware. We need to be in vigilance. And if we need to engage in civil disobedience or whatever, look, I was a veteran of Greek political action as a student in Greece. I came to the US, and I left Greece in December 31, 1966, took a train to Paris, and from there a plane. It was cheaper that way. I came here, guess what happened? 1968. Guess what happened to me? I became president of the student body of a small college I was. We started demonstrating. I was a veteran. I mean, I knew how to do it all. And we made some changes. So society, those of you who are old enough to remember, we had a dramatic shift in society in the late 60s. There was a civil rights movement which was mostly to eliminate discrimination against minorities, primarily African Americans. Then there was an anti-war movement, which was different. And then there was a social uprising. The reason, by the way, I'm not a physicist anymore is because in the early 70s, when I entered graduate school, physics was considered an evil science funded by the Army and the Department of Defense. And I felt uncomfortable as a peace demonstrator to be working in the military-industrial complex that was funded by the Army. So I decided to I didn't want to waste all the physics I knew. I said, what do I do? So I became a structural biologist, kind of like, a blend. Because the other thing was, I figured physics was way too hard for me. I was never know I was going to win a Nobel Prize, so I'm not leaving much behind. But this time may come, and we've been forced to try to come up with small solutions to limited scope problems. We worry about the regulatory thing. There's a new CBER director today, gets announced, the market stocks are going down 5%. We focused in there. That's the misdirection. Think of the bigger picture. And think of all the arms you raised as to who we are and what we contribute here. And we need to stay here because this is still a great place. And with all of that, I can't thank you enough. This has been extraordinary. So thank you, and thank you for your time. You can sit down now, please, enough.
Now we'll have just a group photo,
Yes.
so you can.